Hello and welcome to another vlog on this channel. Today I'm gonna show you how I test new lenses once I buy them. So I have to be honest here, I don't buy lenses very often. So the 1635 lens, my most used lens, which is currently on the camera here, I bought it 6 years ago, been using it since then. And then I also have the 7200 lens, which I now have for more than 10 years. So in between I had a few other lenses which I already sold, so really minimalizing my camera gear. But yeah, when I buy a lens, I want to make sure that it performs well, and you should also do this. And you should do this right at the beginning so you can return it if it doesn't. So one thing I want to look out for, I look out for when I buy a new lens, is if it's properly centered. Because what could happen, so if the lens has some problem, is not centered correctly, typically the focal plane will be parallel to the sensor. So if you focus to some point in the distance or close by, everything to the left and right in that focal plane should have roughly the same sharpness. I mean, it should. To the edges, lenses normally have a little less sharpness, but it should be roughly equal. So if you have a decentered lens, what could happen? You, for example, you focus at the horizon, you think everything there will be sharp, but maybe only the left side is sharp, right side totally out of focus. And this can happen because the focal plane is no longer really parallel to your sensor. It's a little at an angle. And it's very weird. You don't really get the predictable focal range you would have. For example, hyperfocal distance will not work as it should, and it's just a pain to work with. So if you're lucky, you figure out where to focus, how to get everything in focus, even with a decentered lens. But ideally you find out if a lens is decentered or has some problems right in the beginning. And that's what we're gonna do today after I pick up a new lens, which I don't tell you yet which it will be. So my local camera store today, it has 10% off on every Canon lens. So I'm gonna drive there, pick up a lens, and then gonna show you how I test it. Before that, a little announcement. So some of you might know I have many video tutorials on my homepage. So in total, I think it's more than 10 hours. If you purchase them separately, it's I think $240 in value. So I've created them over the last 5 years or so. They're really state of the art, all my techniques, all my workflows. And recently, half a year ago, a little bit more, I put them together into a mega bundle, which is sold for $125 in a sense, so already a huge discount. But I decided now, I discounted even more, so it's now at $85 on my homepage. So what's previously $240, you now get for $85. Everything I know about post-processing, or I think, currently everything I do, it's in those tutorials. And usually if I learn new stuff, I either make a YouTube video or a new tutorial, which normally, if I put it also into the mega bundle, you'll also get this. So for $85, you get a lot here. Okay, but enough talk now. I think I'm gonna head over to the store before it closes, get the new lens, and then we're gonna do some testing. Let's go. So I'm back from the camera store, and the lens I've bought is the RF 1535 lens for the Canon mirrorless system. So you might be asking, mirrorless, why you shoot 5DSR? Yes, until now. The first camera I bought now is the Canon EOS RP, which will be my secondary camera in the future. My girlfriend will mostly use it on travels, but it's always good to have a second body. So I already got this, and I now use it to test the lens. And you might already suspect which camera will be my main camera. Once it's out, the R5, it's already pre-ordered, and I think in 3 or 4 weeks I should have it. And then I can really put this lens also through the paces. Currently I have 26 megapixels here, so I can't do a real comparison to the 1635, which I'm using on the 5DSR. But what I want to test today, as I said, is I just want to see if the lens is not decentered, so to say. So if it's okay, if there are no obvious flaws to the lens. And I do this very simply first indoors. So I have this map of the world, this retro map of the world here, which is very good because it has text and flags to all the edges here. A lot of details, and it's perfect for doing such a test. So what I do, with the camera here on the tripod, I use a 2-second release, and then I go through all the focal lengths. So I start with 35, filling the complete field of view with this map, And then I take photos with f2.8 just to see how well it performs wide open. And I stop down to f4 because this is often a compromise if you want to get just a bit more sharpness, but it's still a very light sensitive. And then I go to f9, which is the aperture I use the most, and I really want to see how it performs like that. And then later I look at the images and just check the corners and see if they are equally sharp. And let me quickly show you how this looks. So I hope you see it. So I filled the complete frame here. The focus is on the center, that's important, focusing on the center, and then 2-second release. Take a photo, and this was now 2.8 at, I think, 35 millimeters. Then I go through the focal length and then also zoom in, zoom out actually. So going to 50 millimeter, I have to get very close then. And this should work to give me a first assessment of how good the lens is, how sharp it is, and if it's decentered. If you don't have such a map or an image on the wall which you can use, you can print some test charts, and I'll link one in the description below which I found. So that's a PDF containing some charts which you then can print multiple times. So you put one in each corner and in the middle, maybe on the wall. And if you can, you should use photo paper to get a high detailed print. I tried this one on normal paper, and that's not, the resolution is not sufficient for that. So you really should use photo paper, and then you can always recycle this lens chart. If you get a new lens, get out the charts, put them on the wall, and then do a test. The thing you make sure is that the camera is completely level, and also that it's parallel to whatever you're photographing. Otherwise, if you're shooting wide open, the focal plane, if it's not parallel to the subject, this will falsify your assessment. Okay, enough talking now. Gonna take the photos, and then also we're gonna head out and do some real world tests, because this is one thing, testing here in the lab with very close subjects, but I also want to see how it performs if you have a foreground, middle ground and background. So this is what I'm gonna do next after I've taken these photos, and I'm gonna take you along now. So I've now come out here into the fields close to where I live, and while it's not a spectacular landscape, it's certainly the right landscape for this test here, because I have this field with lots of details. I have foreground, middle ground, it's going into the background, so I have a lot of details to check throughout the frame. And then the background, I have some little forests, so this will be perfect. And what I've done here, I've set the camera up in this direction, and I'm gonna test basically the same as I did indoors. So I shoot wide open at 15 millimeter, then I stop down a bit, then I go to 20, 24, 35, and basically repeat the test. And I'm far enough away from the foreground, so I don't need to do focus stacking to get everything sharp. So one focus point should be enough. And also what you might see here, let's go to this side actually, I've put a filter holder in front of the lens, and I don't need it now, but what I wanted to test is if I get vignetting at 15 millimeters. Because what I got now, I shoot Kase filters, and I have the K8 kit for a long time now. But for this test, what I got is the K9 kit. So it's been out since half a year, and the K9 kit is designed for such a lens. It's designed for wide lenses, and it basically does not vignette. I already checked, it's great. I have the slim filters, and with the slim filters, they are very slim. So the filter holder, the footprint of the holder, this here, is very thin. If I had the thick filters, this would go out maybe half a centimeter more, and I would get vignetting. But with this small footprint, I actually can shoot 15 millimeters with that lens, 2 filters applied, and don't get vignetting, and that's pretty awesome. And that's all the reason why I didn't buy a wider lens than 16 millimeters before. I wanted to use the small filters and not the huge ones. And when this lens came out, I instantly thought, wow, that's great. I can apply a normal filter holder, and if I don't get vignetting at 15 millimeters with filters applied, this would be awesome. And actually, it is awesome. With the K9 kit from Kase and the slim filters, 50 millimeters is not a problem. But now enough talking, I will do some tests now. Also, one final thing, I also will test
how 15mm compared to 60mm, which I had before, and I even brought my old camera, so the 5DSR with a 1635. So I really want to compare the setup I had before, widest at 60mm, with the new setup, or kind of new, so it's not yet the R5, but I want to shoot it at 15 and just see how much 1mm is really if you're shooting a landscape. Okay, enough talking. I now do all the tests, and then we'll meet back in the office and look at the photos.
So it's time to look at the photos, and I've brought them here into Lightroom, and yeah, this is actually the first shot I did. It's 2.8, 35mm, and this is the indoor setup. So let's first zoom in here to the middle, make sure I had the focus right. It loads a little bit because I don't have the fastest PC, but yeah, it's very sharp here. Now let's go to the corners, and I just use here quickly this navigator, and you see down here, well, it's slightly less sharp than in the middle. That's to be expected at 2.8, but what I wanted to see is if all the corners are equally sharp. So looking at the corners now, it seems they're equally sharp, or yeah, less sharp, because in the center it's much sharper, but I think it's pretty good for 2.8. Let's see what f9 would do. So this is my typical aperture when I do landscapes. So let's see, and you see, stop down to f9. It's very sharp here in this corner, in this corner, this corner, and up here also. So I'd say this is pretty awesome, very good. And now we're gonna move on to 24mm. So again, 2.8. Let's zoom into the corner, and yeah, this looks slightly sharper than what I had at 35. Also this side and up here. Yeah, you see it's not as sharp as if I would go to the middle. But this I already knew from tests which are on the internet, and this is typical for most lenses, but I think it's sufficiently sharp. If I would now go in and sharpen this, I think I could get sufficient detail out of it. So now let's again see f9. This is now pretty sharp to all the sides, so no decentering. But also want to mention here, it's important that you test different focal lengths. So just testing one focal length will not tell you if your lens has a problem with decentering. Sometimes the decentering can happen just at certain focal lengths, so it's important to go through the range, shoot wide, shoot middle length, and also close up. So till now it looks pretty good. Now we're gonna move on to 20. Same procedure. Here at the sides, it's a little bit unsharp. So as we get wider with this lens, the top is the same. So sharpness degrades to the edges, but it's really just the far edges that go in just a little bit. It gets sharper. Same here. Now again, yeah, let's first for a change see what f4 does to the lens. So just stopping down, one stop here, and this already looks pretty good. So going from 2.8 to f4 already brings much more sharpness. And yeah, as usual, f9 should be very sharp, which it is. So at 20mm, this is perfect. Not as sharp as the center, so center is always sharper, but it's pretty good. Now we're getting to the really interesting focal length, because currently I own a 1635mm f4 lens. So the reason upgrading to this lens would really be having 2.8 and also having this extra 1mm. So let's have a look. 15mm, 2.8, and yeah, again, middle center is very good. This side, it looks a little unsharp. Let's see the other one. This looks very bad. And we zoom out, yeah, you can see that it seems I didn't have it very parallel, so I had it at an angle, so there's slight perspective. So looking at this corner, it could be depth of field affecting this. Let's go to f4, should normally alleviate the problem. It's still not so nice. Let's see the other side. Yeah, it's a little sharper. So I actually did a second set of those where I made sure to have it parallel. Let's look at those. And yeah, again, doesn't look so sharp to the edges. Let's see the other side. And if you look here at those, they're also less sharp. So the more I move here to the middle, the more contrasty, the more sharp it gets. So you see, it gets a little softer. But if I go to this side here, this looks less sharp. So this is not so good. It seems like this lens could be slightly decentered. I mean, we already saw this at 20 mil, that when I was at 2.8, the edges looked a little soft, but I wasn't thinking much of it. But now at 15 millimeters, it seems, yeah, it becomes apparent that something might not be right. So I really have to look now at the outside photos. So that's why you always should do both, not only indoor. Let's also check the other photos. So this is outside 15mm 2.8, and I focused down here at the front. So I did focus tagging just to make sure it's very sharp. Let's go to this edge, and yeah, that's blurry, but I think that's depth of field. What you see here, this grass here, this one, which is not moved by wind or anything. This is very sharp. Let's go to the other side. Doesn't look so good, but it's also hard to tell here. Let's go to f9 and see if I get this sharp, or if I got it sharp with f9. And yeah, it seems like it got sharp, but it's still a little bit soft here. Let's see the other side. Yeah, also here it seems it's the depth of field. That's not 100%. Let's quickly jump to a photo I took at the end, where just comparing. So this one was f9. I focused somewhere here. So everything should be sharp because I'm on a tripod. So this is all far enough away. At f9 I should get everything sharp, and here you see this lens is very sharp in this areas, even at 15mm 2.8, f9, sorry. To this edge it's sufficiently sharp. I mean, it's a bit softer, but I think it's okay. And also all the rest here, this all looks very good. This side very sharp. And now if we go down, let's see. Yeah, so this edge here, just this bit, doesn't look very good. So you have very sharp grasses here, and then there's a harsh drop, and it's not like this is closer to the camera than this here. So this is not a depth of field issue, I fear. So let me just show you some other photos. I also took some photos right out of the window where everything is farther away than 6 meters. So let's see what this gives me. So let's first look at this one here. So this one is centered or focused right here. So let's see what's sharp. So 15mm 2.8, and yeah, this is very sharp. Go to this edge. I mean, slightly less sharp, but still enough detail. Now to the other side, and yeah, here again you see this. There's a very abrupt drop in sharpness, and you have to remember everything is roughly the same distance from the camera. And I also did a test now where I focused explicitly at this edge. See if I could get it sharp that way, which is something you can do if you have a decentered lens. If you focus at the part which is normally not sharp, you usually get it sharp. So if I would keep this lens, I could do focus stacking, but that's not the point here. I want to find out if it's decentered and return it if it is. So now this is sharp, but now what you see, all the rest gets unsharp. So this tells me that this lens might be decentered, at least showing at 15mm. You saw the other focal length looked quite nice. I also did a shot at 5.6. So really with 5.6 at this distance, 15mm, everything should be tag sharp here. So let's check this. This was focused here and everything's sharp. This edge is pretty sharp now. The background, everything very sharp. So looking at this lens really performs very well. So I really like it. But now let's see what happens. Yeah, oh, that's not good. So really, I think I have to return this lens because this is not acceptable. So you see there's a very abrupt drop in sharpness. That's definitely not depth of field. That's also not me using this lens wrong. That's definitely something wrong with the lens. So yeah, you see in the end, those tests were very important. So I got this lens now just for one day, for a few hours, and I've already found some issue with it. So I think, yeah, I'm gonna sleep about this and maybe repeat those tests just to be sure. But I think, yeah, for more than 2,000 euros I pay for this lens, it has to be perfect. So also I want to
not have to focus take such a shot. It should just be sharp. So I'm gonna return it, I think.
Yeah, and this is what I did. So I returned the lens 2 days ago. That's also why it's important to do your tests right at the beginning. So you have usually 2 weeks of return policy when you order online, and for the shop where I bought it, I could have replaced it, but unfortunately they didn't have the lens in stock. So instead I just returned it, and yeah, I'll just get a new one. And I think in a couple of weeks when I also have the R5, so I kind of decided now I'll just also wait for the camera. I mean, this was just a quick buy now because it was discounted by 10%, but yeah, now it seems I got the bad lens, so yeah, it's no point now in just getting a new one right away. I just wait for the proper camera to test it, so then I can also do a real review, a real comparison with my old setup, which is the 50 megapixels 5 DSR, which I now have for 5 years with the 1635 f4, and yeah, really see what this change of equipment really does in terms of resolution and yeah, how much details I get out of it. So there's a lot of talk now on the internet. The R5 is out there, a lot of experts out there who know how the R5 is gonna perform, and I don't know honestly. So what does the anti-aliasing filter really mean with, yeah, when I combine it with the new lenses? Will I see a difference? I suspect that the 45 megapixels will be sufficient for me, and I'll get a comparable detail out of it to my current setup, especially with the new lenses, but we'll see that. And if you're interested in that, also an update on this lens, which I just returned once I get it, just make sure to subscribe. Also, again, the video is still on discount. Yeah, it's still, I just told you, but it's already a few days since I recorded that video. I think I'm gonna have it on discount at least throughout August. So yeah, have a look if this is for you. I mean, $85 is quite a deal on that. And yeah, also let me know if you have suggestions for further videos, what you would like to see in the future. Currently I've moved kind of to a 2-week schedule. 1-week schedule is just a little too much currently, but at some point when I get out shooting more, I'll also try to upload more videos again. But for now, see you.